And hi, guys, welcome back to another segment of Unmasking the Truth. And today I have these lovely ladies, and there are three RPNs, registered practical nurse. Now, I'm going to do my disclaimer, and then I'm going to ask these ladies to introduce themselves. Of course, I'm Kelly, and my disclaimer is everything and anything I'm about to say or do is on me. It's my channel, it's me. I'm going to ask you guys some questions. If you feel comfortable in answering, go right ahead and answer. Jump in when necessary if you want to. And if you don't feel comfortable in answering the questions, just say I'm not comfortable in answering the question. I'm going to ask you guys to like, comment, share, and guys, share the video. This is of great importance. And the topic of today, of course, I know you've seen the thumbnail. It's about mental health. And I'm going to kick it over to Sandy and ask her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Kelly. Hello, everyone. My name is Sandy, and I'm an RPN of 40 years.
My name is Julie. I'm an RPN for about 15 years. I've been working in the long-term care since I started my career.
My name is Camille. I'm an RPN, and I've been an RPN for 21 years.
So, guys, you know me. I'm the type of person who's roll by the seat of your pants kind of a person, but this topic is too important and too vast for me to just wing it. So of course, what I did is I wrote down some specific questions that I need to ask these guys, because I know that they're capable of answering it and we need answers. So my first question is going to be, anybody just jump in. Define mental health, guys.
Mental health relates to how one is able to cope with everyday life. Being able to complete menial tasks that you normally complete every day, but you don't think about it. When someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, you'll see that their routine have a tendency to change, and they're not able to do the things that they normally do on a daily basis.
So in a nutshell, like to simplify it, is mental health is having the ability to do your daily routine, do your daily living effectively and contribute normally to society. Would that sum it up basically?
Exactly.
Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to ask, what is good mental health?
For me, the mental health not only how to cope with the daily living, it's also how you feel, how you're emotional for the thing, and how you deal with your family, your work. That's all. It means if you have the mental health, you can be poor, you can be good, you can be excellent. But if you have the good mental health, that means you feel you can deal with your daily life. You can deal with the family's good relationship, maintain a good relationship. When you work, you don't feel that much stress. You feel you can handle your work. That's what my feeling the mental health to be.
So, tell me something. So, can you tell that someone is suffering from mental health?
Not always. You can't always tell that someone is suffering from mental health because they're very good in hiding it. If they don't want to let you know or they don't want help, they are very good at hiding that they're having mental issues.
Another thing is probably they not realize they have a mental health problem. Like me, when at the beginning of pandemic, I really feel scared because we don't have enough PPEs. I feel stressed. But I not really realize, okay, that's my mental health. I just feel maybe the workload, feel something else. I think a lot of people probably like me don't realize they have mental health problem.
It's weird that you touched on work and how you felt about certain things that are supposed to be, you're supposed to have access to certain things, especially, I mean, going through the pandemic. Because my next question was going to be, what causes mental health? So if I should throw it out there and ask what causes mental health, what would your answer be, in a nutshell, simplifying?
So, in reality, we all could experience mental health issues. Whether they last a long time varies with every person, right? But it's getting to recognize that you're feeling some kind of way and you're really not able to cope with the little things that you normally would cope with. I'd like to expand on my sister June Lee's comment when she said that sometimes it's difficult to see that you have mental health or other people have difficulty, but really there are some signs and symptoms out there that we can notice of people that we know.
It's amazing. I'm going to say this because I feel like you guys are either reading my mind or you know what I wrote down. Because my next question is, what are the signs? Can you identify that someone is going through a mental health disorder? Because she spoke about her work and the fear of not having PPEs. So how would you say, how could you define or spot that somebody is going through some kind of a mental health crisis?
So, for example, Kelly, let's say you and I always went to dinner on a Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
And you started to notice that I was making excuses for not going out. I wasn't calling you back like I normally do. So little changes in people's routines often are a signal that maybe there's something going on. Not necessarily that they have exactly a mental health issue, but maybe they are experiencing something that you want to help them with. So typically, signs and symptoms quite often are changes in routine.
Mm-hmm.
They isolate. They don't enjoy the things that they normally enjoy. So whether that's horseback riding, reading, or going to the movies, those things start to change. And you will notice, oh, Kelly, you always come out with us on a Tuesday night. Is everything okay? Typically, what would you respond? Well, you may not want people to know what you're experiencing. And this leads us to biases when we're talking about mental health. Many people feel that if they're experiencing a mental health issue, that they don't want to tell people because they feel that they're going to be judged.
Yes, there is
Right?
this stigma that is attached to it. But before we get into that, because I swear you guys are just so over the top, like that you guys are even getting ahead of my game here.
Sorry.
So no, and that's great because it's great. That's what I want. I want the education. I want my viewers to know. So my question is, does gender plays a part? Does mental health differ from male to female or whosoever identify as, male or female or whatever they identify as? Does it differ?
Well, I would have to say that women have a tendency really to hide it a great deal because we are responsible quite often for being the caregivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to say that one gender or the other experiences more than another. What I can say is how they respond to it is different, right?
Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you, does cultural differences make, does the people who are, what would I say race, ethnicity, color, creed, does that, the way how mental health affect one, does that play a part of it, the race? Like a black person different from a Chinese, from a, Caucasian, Can you elaborate? Can you explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, so quite often culture does play a part because of whatever reason that you experience your culture in your lifetime, your beliefs and your religious beliefs sometimes could have an impact on how you recognize mental health, right? So everyone is different in how they respond, but I feel from the patients that I see on a regular basis is that women and women of color tend to experience a great deal of it because they're shouldering a lot, right? And so when you look at society today, there's a lot going on, a lot. You have a pandemic, you have people losing their jobs, you have mothers trying to feed their children, you have so much going on. And that is what people are experiencing right now. And I am so grateful to have this opportunity to openly talk about mental health.
I'm happy that you touched on mothers feeding their kids and the pandemic, because as healthcare workers, I feel like a lot of like our bosses, like managers or all of the above, the people who are who employ us, they never gave a second thought about the fact that we too are losing residents, which are like families to us. They never stop to think that we too are affected in one way or another. So what I want to ask you is, do you believe, in your opinion, do you think that there are enough support for people who work in the healthcare profession, like in the hospital sector, the long-term, especially the long-term care sector, the retirement, the community? Do you feel that there is support for these people?
Well, I can only speak from long-term care, because that's what I work in, and I don't believe there is support for the workers. Like you said, we develop a relationship with these residents, and it's hard to see them die. It hurts us, and we see it repetitively. When you work in long-term care, a lot of the residents, they're very sad because they're placed there because they say they placed me here to die. And you form this bond with them, you get them out of their room, you get them doing activities, you sit and you talk to them, you get to know them on a personal level. So when they do pass, it affects you a lot. And I don't find that there is enough support. There's support for the family. I mean, I can only speak for where I work. Before the pandemic, they would have memorial service for the families, and the staff is not invited. We're not invited, just the family members. And I mean, how could you exclude the people who cared for these individuals every day for the remainder of their lives? I mean, we are who they recognize. Sometimes their family come to visit. They don't even realize their family's in the room, but when they hear our voice, you could see the smile on their face, the recognition, and now they're there every day and then they're gone. And it is a loss for all the staff that work with this resident. And management doesn't recognize that. They don't come and sit and talk to you. How are you feeling? How are you doing? They just, they might have like a prayer on the intercom and that's it. And I've seen PSWs who get really emotional when one of their residents passed.
So I can't help but to, while you were speaking, you actually touched on a really important point that I wasn't even thinking about, because you talk about the residents, and it's amazing how we think about mental health, but really and truly I think about me. I'm not gonna lie, but really when you think about it, it does affect everybody, doesn't it? Even the residents who say that they're left there to die, they're probably going through some kind of a mental health situation also. But did anybody stop to think about that? How many times have we seen residents are crying because they haven't seen anybody, and we are the only one that they see, and yet still we're treated as if we're nothing. We are playing a very vital part in these residents' life, because we're not only just caretaker, but we pretty much are. Do you guys want to elaborate on that?
We are their sounding board.
Yeah.
We are their daughters. Some we are their mothers. some were their granddaughters, their grandkids, their kids. For some of them, we are the only relative they have. We're all they have. Yeah. So I mean, and people, like everyone needs to take that into consideration, especially management. They need to realize that we are these resident family. Like in the pandemic, they hadn't seen their families in months. We're the ones who were cutting their hair, we were doing their
Yes.
makeup, we were doing their nails
Yes.
to let them feel better about themselves. And I remember at one time, this family member wanted to see her mom, and she's calling her mom, and she couldn't get her mom. And I looked out the window, and I'm like, "You want to see your mom?" And she said, "I brought her to the window in the dining room where she could see her. They could speak to each other. She saw the pet, and she was so happy. It made her day, and she was very thankful." So a lot of times, even what the thing is too, people normalize the things that we do. We go above and beyond, and we don't realize that we're doing more than our job is requiring of us. And
So true.
we normalize it. It's like
It's a part of it.
Exactly.
It's a
So
part of
we
it.
think we don't think twice to do it.
So, do you think that, okay, let me rephrase that. What does adequate support for mental health, what do you think that should look like?
Well, I think especially as healthcare workers, I think we definitely should have the opportunity to be able to have support groups where we can share exactly how we're feeling. Because when you're with people who understand what you're feeling, you're more apt to share that.
Because they're basically going through the same thing as you are too, right?
That's a definite. And certainly some counseling is always beneficial, right? It's an opportunity to have a one-on-one session with someone who is able to share. Maybe they're not able to share with a group, but they're able to share one-on-one with someone who they don't feel is going to judge them for what they're going through.
So, who do you feel that is responsible for the support? Like, do you think that it should be your workplace? Do you think it should be the government? Do you think it should be your union? Or who do you feel that should provide the support? Or could it be a collective effort?
Yeah, I think the government should be play the main role, because the healthcare worker, the mental health, not only one place, it's all over the world. Even like the high suicide rate is a healthcare worker has the highest suicide rate. That means from mental health going to mental illness, then they decide to kill themselves, right? Even during the pandemic, I saw like 75% people report that the mental health getting worse. That means all over the world. That means the government should be play the main role, have more funding given to the employer, so they can, even the unit and collaboration have some surveys or some group to tell, to show us or teach us how to cope with the stress, how to deal with the mental health.
So, I can't help but to ask my sister here, and I'm not just pointing you out, but also I'm going to speak to you, and then I'm going to ask to the other two panelists that with this COVID pandemic and with someone in authority like the president of the ex-president of the United States stating that, I mean, it's not a secret that you're Chinese. I mean, it was identified as by him a Chinese disease, right? I want to know, how did you feel? And before you answer, I want to know, how did you feel? Because you must have colleagues that you work side by side with who are of the Chinese descent, and I'm going to ask the same thing to you also. So I would like you to address, how did it make you feel? Junli, yeah.
For me, really feel the hurt by the whatever, to say that, right? Because everybody deal with the virus, same to as China, same to as the whole world, and decide this way to blame for us, right? So especially like for me, I got the support from my work, especially my union, the chief steward. she come in here and gather all the Chinese Asian people together to share your feelings. So you feel the support from them, right? And you can, especially for my mom, my parents, she was in that, she don't want to go out more because she's scared some people gonna point on her and gonna do something harmful her, because she see the video or newspaper or whatever video, you can see somebody being pushed and somebody being hit by by some people. I think that's why it's all from the Trump. He's not try to like make the people all together and make the people like hate each other.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go to Sandy.
Wow, it really, that is a deep question, Sister Kelly. I come from a place of privilege, and to witness on television someone being violently attacked really made me angry. But more importantly, at work, we all made sure that our Asian sisters that work with us felt safe, felt they could talk about it, but more importantly, that it had nothing to do with them. Because the reality is, this is a pandemic, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't discriminate against who you are, what color you are. It's going to hit every person, period. That's what it does. So for me, I was angry. It really made me angry because hate is so dangerous for everybody. And it's so important. So thank you for sharing that, sister. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Kelly.
I'm going to go to Camille.
Well, as a person of color, I can only empathize. I empathize with the Asian community because we've been going through similar situations for centuries, for years. So I know what it feels like to be at the receiving end of hatred, prejudice, and a whole bunch of other things. Discrimination, you name it. I know how it feels. So at my workplace, we didn't have an issue. And I wouldn't allow our co-workers to have this hatred towards the Asian community because they are not to be blamed. It could have happened, it could have been coming from any country. They were targeted.
But,
Exactly.
and the reality is, it was put out there by someone of prestige, right? And how does one come back from such a stigma? Like, I mean, being pointed, being identified that you're the one. How does one come back from something like that? And what do you think the mental health state of that population or those people would be like?
Oh my. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear at its greatest. It's making people afraid to be part of society for a specific reason. Who has that right? And it's like a PTSD. That's exactly what people would feel is very, very post-traumatic syndrome when you walk outside and somebody's screaming obscenities at you, and this happens on a regular basis for you. So I can't speak for what it would be like, but I can say this from a place of privilege. I can't imagine having to deal with that every single day. It's got to affect your mental health, because you develop a fear for society, you become isolated, and we're not meant to live that way, So yes, it has a huge effect on a person's mental health.
I'm going to share something with you that I haven't shared with anybody. And I mean, when COVID came about and you're hearing that it's coming from China, and then you hear the Brazilian, they started naming them basically. I was praying to God that there was none coming from the black population because I felt like I'm already stigmatized. I'm already out there as this, that, and the other. God, we don't need this right now. And that was bearing kind of, maybe, I don't know if fear is the right word. Maybe it is, but honestly, I was hoping that none was coming from the black community, but there was one. And so all I was doing is I'm trying to keep myself to myself, kind of a thing, because I try not to cough. Even if I want to cough, I try not to sneeze. I try not to do any of those things that they say that is associated with COVID, because I was afraid how I would be looked upon.
I bet.
And it is not good for one mental state. But the thing is, how does one stop such a discrimination? And how does one come out of that?
Mm-hmm.
I think stopping that would be education. Education, education, education. I can't stress enough. People fear what they don't know. And if you don't take the time out to get to know me, then the onus is on you. And I think once you know who or what you're dealing with, it's so much easier. It won't affect you mentally because you will know how to deal with it.
Okay, and I love what you just said. The onus is on you. But how many people take that onus? How many people try to do better? And I really love the people who want to know, want to learn, want to make a change. But then how do you spread that? How does one go about it? Anyways, I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to go back to healthcare workers, because that's what I am, and I'm not going to hide it. That's what I do, and I really do care about our mental state, because the pandemic is not the only thing that caused mental health. I mean, working short, because I'll be at home and I'm worrying, oh my God, I hope everybody show up for work today. Oh my God, I hope this resident is going to have a good day today. And the list goes on. So I want to ask Sandy or you guys, like in terms of our work, where do you see mental health and how can we control it? Because what causes it? We said the stressors are the main cause, right? But how do we control that?
Well, I don't know that you can actually control it per se, but it's how you treat yourself. You definitely need to take time out for yourself, whatever that looks like for you. You need to set up an opportunity that you have someone that you can talk to if you need to. The key is setting yourself up for success, right? We all have our moments. It's knowing your limitations, knowing when you can't push forward. Because let's be real, that's not easy, thinking every time. I know when I go in to do a shift, the first thing on my mind, oh, I hope everybody's coming in. How many short are we going to be? Mm-hmm. Right? So that's the first thing you go to, because my coworkers are feeling exactly like me. They're stressed, they're tired, they just need a break. So imagine if we had employers that provided the necessary tools for us to be able to be supported in our workplace. Never mind just at home, but in our workplace. What does that look like? Well, that looks like having the right complement of staff, right? Mm-hmm. That looks like being able to take care of one another. I can take your patients while you go for your break, allowing you to take a break, allowing to be nourished, allowing you, all of the normal things that we push through because we take care of other people. We have to learn to start taking care of ourselves.
So I love what you're saying, Sandy, because you're touching on a lot of points. But what I want to ask you is, and I want you to delete. Yeah, I lost my thought there for a minute, but don't worry about it. So what I want you to answer is, mental health is a big issue in healthcare.
Yeah.
The thing that I want you to kind of expand upon is, a lot of times new employees are already going through a mental situation, and now that they're coming into this profession with the mental health situation that they're going to be facing, because we're constantly going to work short. They're constantly going to ask to work extra shift. They're constantly going to tell them you cannot get a day off here or no vacation. So what do you feel that person is heading towards?
So when the stressors become at a point where you can't cope anymore, that's where you're looking at a serious problem, right? Because you can't, and it's an old adage that we say, you can't see the forest for the trees. When somebody starts to go in that direction, I like the color scheme that we used to use a couple of years ago, the color continuum, where you're green when you're doing well, and when you hit the orange, things are starting to change. You're starting to not remember things, and you're very scattered in your thinking, and you're not eating or sleeping well. And once you hit that red zone, you're in trouble. This is where you need professional help for sure, and somebody to reach out to help that person, right?
But and again, I'm gonna say, like, a lot of, because maybe I'm suffering from mental health issues, but I don't know. So if I don't know, and if nobody out there can identify it, like to say, Kelly's acting weird. If somebody isn't gonna nudge me to let me know, then am I not gonna be falling in between the cracks?
There's a lot of people that do fall in between the cracks, 100% they do. But here's the thing. Someone whose mental health is starting to create an issue for them are not going to follow through with everyday activities, whether that's for caring for someone or whether that's, you're going to see that something's not right. You're going to see it, believe it or not. And so I really trust people's judgment, because sometimes when you're in it, you're not seeing everything that's going on around you. But the other people that are around you are seeing what's going on. So, for example, I had a coworker who was going through a very difficult time. She was at work. It started with, don't anybody put Christmas decorations up, She didn't want Christmas decorations put up. And then it started with snapping, like just being angry all the time. And you can see a person's demeanor change. And when you know that someone is not relating to you on any level, so you ask me a question, Sandy, how are you doing today? Fine, Kelly, and just keep going. And then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And over time, you will see that everything starts to change. So you don't have to be a professional to identify that someone is in crisis, okay? People generally are able to cope with everyday tasks at their job that they know that they have to do. Yes, they could take a job as a healthcare worker and experiencing mental health, not realizing how much more pressure that could add, right? The job itself can be very taxing. It can be very difficult. Never mind all of the other things that we could add into it, short staffing, pandemic, all of those things. But the job that we all do in healthcare is very tough. We're caring for other people, right?
So if and you hit the nail on the head. If we're caring for other people and no one is caring for us, then where does it leave us? I want to know that. And at the same time, I'm going to go back to the question again and ask, who is responsible for us? Who should be responsible for our well-being, mental state? There are 5 states of your wellness, isn't there? Right? So in my mental state, and if work is going to be part of the problem, then who is responsible for that part of the problem?
Well, it would be, like I said earlier, I think that employers really have to start recognizing that mental health is exactly mental health. Now, I'm going to say to you, what happens 9 times out of 10, people think that mental health is like a cut. So if I have surgery on my arm, I will have a wound on my arm. You can predict when that's going to heal. So you're going to change the dressing.
My next question was going to be, can you cure mental health? And here it is, you're hitting the nail right on the head. So go on ahead.
So 9 times out of 10, people think that it's like a wound, a physical wound, where you can predict, okay, after 2 weeks we can take the dressing off, it's going to dry up, we don't have to clean it anymore, and after 6 weeks it should be scabbed over and healed. Mental health is not the same. And yet people want to treat it the same. And it cannot be. It's no different than if you have, if you're suffering from loss, as I heard my sister say, suffering from a loss of residence on a regular basis, as many of you have experienced. And if that goes unchecked, that's going to continue on for you. It's going to be difficult.
But Sandy, I'm sorry, but look at it this way. If work is the trigger, because it's the stressor, I need to work. So if going into that environment is what's triggering me all the time, then what do? I need to live. I have a family to support. Where is the support for that?
Well, sometimes it takes having a break from the actual trigger that's putting you into that position. Okay.
But Sandy, I'm sorry. But you know, like even at work, we've had days where you have code white, which is aggressive resident. And I myself, I know, you know what? Tomorrow I need to call off because I'm at that state where I just cannot go there tomorrow. But if I call in tomorrow, what is your problem? Why are you sick? Yes, I'm sick. I'm mentally sick. They will tell you to come to work. Take a Tylenol. Do this, do that. But they cannot. The thing is, you are not basically allowed to be sick because we're short-staffed. They cannot find a replacement. This, that, your colleague. You're not going in and your colleague working short. That is also adding to their stress. So where do we get the help?
The stress. Listen, your employer doesn't have the right to tell you what your sickness level is or what type of sickness you have.
They do?
Well, they do because they try to get away with that. But what I'm saying is, if you're in that place, it's an opportunity to have a conversation with your physician and say, this is where I am. I can't step in there. This is what's happening. I'm not sleeping at night. I'm thinking, I'm not eating, I'm not taking care of my family, right? So,
but also, Kelly, I mean, we put a lot of the stress on ourselves because you're thinking about, okay, if I don't go in, my coworker is going to be short. But you have to remember, you are number one. Your mental health comes first, because then if it's affecting your mental health, what good are you going to work? When you're going to take your problems into work and you're going to unleash these burdens on your coworkers, sometimes the resident. And unfortunately, I always think of me first, my mental health, because if my mental health is in a bad place, I am no use to anyone.
Exactly.
I cannot do my job. I cannot care for the resident. Imagine me having a mental crisis and I'm giving medications. Would you want medication from someone who's having a mental health crisis?
But the thing is, if you can't identify it, how are you going to know that I'm having a crisis?
I'm pretty much sure you can identify when you are having whether you accept that you're having one and accept the help that or reach or go look for help.
Right.
So you have to be accountable for your state of mind.
So I'm going to ask a question then, and humor me. So do you think that in our next bargaining, we should talk about mental health days?
Obviously.
Of course. Because it's not in our collective agreement nowhere. So maybe that needs to be in our next bargaining. Maybe that is something. Because it's a big deal.
It is.
Right?
It is now. I think it's in the past year or two. In the past year or two that everyone is actually recognizing how important your mental health is. Now they're putting emphasis on mental health because too many people are dying, are taking their lives too many mothers are losing their children. I've had multiple co-workers who have lost children or a relative or was about to, and you have to have those conversations. And
So,
if you don't have this
Continue.
conversation, we're not going to get anywhere. You need to have the conversation. You need to put it out there. They need to know what's going on. Because I always say, if they don't know this is happening, how can they help?
okay, so do you feel that because we're trying to troubleshoot here also, right? And I was saying, do you feel that there is enough support? So do you think that each workplace should have like a support group? Like, because as you said before, a lot of people will sit down and talk with each other if they know that they're going through the same kind of situation. So do you feel that workplace should start organizing, having support group, like even a day or once a month or anything like that? What are your guys' opinions on that?
Yeah, I think that's really good. You know, it doesn't matter how you need to share. You need that support from the people. You need to learn how to deal with your stress, right? So I think that in the working place, we have like a same working environment. We get a similar stress from the work. That's really good if we have like a support group at the workplace.
So with Junli saying that, so what do you feel about this Bill 124 that has been ripped away from you? How do you feel about that?
So, Bill 124 actually is hurting us in a lot of ways. So we don't want that bill to be there, right? One of the things too, if I could just go back for a second, June Lee, my sister, really touched on something. You know something else we could do at the workplace? I heard you say earlier that you're experiencing code whites on a regular basis. My question to you is, how often are you given the opportunity after something like that happens to have a group debrief to talk about it?
Never.
That's another area that needs to be improved in your work environment. When you all experience a code like that, you should all have an opportunity to get together just for a 5 or 10 minute debrief to talk about what happened, you know, how we could prevent it, or what could we change to make it better so that we're not in that position. Anything. An opportunity to talk about how you feel. Debrief that code.
And with that being said, Sandy, who do you think should be in that debriefing?
Good questions, Camille. Thank you
That
very
is
much
a
for
great
that.
question. So, having been part of debriefs all the time for Code Whites because of where I work, we usually debrief with the team. So, whoever was involved, the charge nurse should be present because she would be responsible for responding with the code, right? And then all of your PSWs, your housekeepers, everybody that was in the area at the time of the code white.
Okay, so in the setting that I work, right, we have something similar when we have a fall. It's called a huddle, post-fall huddle. All right. So with that, it's the entire thing that you said. But like when it comes to a violent resident or it's a mental health crisis, do you not think that like the DOC or who, you know, like upper management should be there?
Whoever the supervisor is, that definitely the DOC should have a part in that. Because let's be real, usually when we attend Code Whites, there's going to be an incident report filled out. So really, the team that were involved is an opportunity to have that debrief and talk about it. Because sometimes it can be, just that event itself can be traumatic. Never mind all what you're talking about, everything that is going on. So I really think it's an opportunity to have that happen at the time that the Code White is called.
Oh, that's awesome.
I feel that, okay, I'm going to kind of wrap this video up because I don't want it to be longer than it, because this is a really big topic and one session alone will not cover or complete right? Because there's too much to discuss,
It
right?
is.
So I'm going to say to you and each person, if there is one thing that you can tell a member, my audience, a viewer that may be going through a mental health situation, what would that one thing be?
Please, please reach out. I can't tell you how important it is to let you know that you are not alone. Reach out.
Just remember, we have a lot great people around you to support you. Just speak out and tell you how you're feeling and venting out your feelings.
I would say to seek help and not be ashamed. Going through a crisis or mental health crisis is nothing to be ashamed of. And you are not alone. Don't think that you're alone. There's so much people going through similar situation, and there's always someone you can reach out to. It may look at that time that there's no one, but if you look hard enough, you'll see that there's at least one person you can reach out to.
I'm going to just kick it over and I'm going to ask you if there is one thing that you can tell the government about mental health and its association with people of the healthcare sector, what would that one thing be? What do you think the government needs to do, or how the government can help?
Well, I think there needs to be language in policies at all of the employers' place that provide supports if you need it, and not have to pay for it. I really feel that the government should finance that to help you get through it, because really, if finances is going to be part of your burden, you're never going to get out of that. That's going to be so hard, and you won't want to seek help. So I'd like to see employers providing free counseling or free any type of supports that would be free for the employees.
Yeah, the funding is so important. It's because without money, we cannot do anything. And another thing, I hope the government have more, like tell the people how you recognize the mental health, how to deal with it. You can put on like more, how to see like the section in the TV or at the workplace, education.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm lost in my train of thought. Sorry.
So I'm gonna say this to my viewers. Mental health is no joke. I know that there is this stigma, and it's like, oh, that's the crazy person. You're not crazy. As you heard it right here, mental health can affect just about anybody. So reach out, talk to people. I know some of us are so like private, but where is it gonna get you? If there is one thing that you would love everyone to know about Sandy and her feelings towards mental health, go ahead.
We are all human, and we are meant to feel. It's just the way we're built. Know this, there's no right or wrong. It just, whatever you're feeling, you have the right to talk about it and just get some help. We're all here.
Take care of yourself so you can take care of the people surrounding you.
I would say all know that you have someone to talk to. I'm always a phone call away, a text message away. I'm always here to listen. I don't judge, no judgment here. And it's always good to know there's someone, and take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself.
The last thing I'm going to say is and people, I'm not just selecting LTC people, okay? But come next year, we're going into bargaining. When what do they call these things? When they ask you, what do you wish for? Ask for that. Ask for Mental Health Day. Sometimes money is not all. That one day that you can get that break, I feel that it's way more important. Okay? Anyways, I'm going to thank you, lovely ladies, lovely sisters, for joining me today. And I'm so pleased, and honestly, I'm grateful that when I asked that you guys said yes to each and every single one of you. Now, guys, this is a wrap. I'm going to ask you to share the video with your mama, papa, auntie, sister, uncle, brother, and even your enemies them. And until next time, I love you all. Bye-bye.